Have you ever met someone so unapologetically rude that it made you pause? Made you wonder, did they really just say that out loud? It's as if their ego walked in 5 minutes before they did. These are the ones who interrupt, who undermine, who treat passive aggression like casual conversation. They carry themselves with an air of entitlement, like the world owes them something, and you're just expected to absorb it. Smile, nod, shrink. But here's the truth. Disrespect only survives where it's allowed. And most of us, we've been taught to keep the peace at the cost of our own, to stay quiet, to turn the other cheek, even as our self-respect gets chipped away. But silence isn't strength when it's rooted in fear. It's not maturity, it's surrender. In this video, we're going to break the illusion that staying calm means staying passive, and show you how real strength responds when tested. There's a kind of silence that echoes louder than any outburst. It happens when you stop justifying your worth to people who were never qualified to judge it. You ever sit across from someone who speaks to you with condescension, like respect is a courtesy reserved only for them? It stings at first, but then something shifts. You realize, I don't have to meet this energy. I don't have to mirror this behavior, because power isn't always loud, and dignity doesn't argue. In that moment, you reclaim your ground, not by shouting over them, but by standing still in unshakable calm. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. That lives in me." Because when you respond to disrespect with composure, you protect your peace and deny them the chaos they crave. Rude people thrive on reactions. They feed off drama, off knowing they rattled you. So when you give them nothing, no rise, no show, just silence, that's the real burn. Stoicism reminds us of something simple but powerful. We can't control their words, only our response. And when you say, "I won't lower myself to your level," you're not being weak. You're being precise. You're drawing a line without crossing theirs. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." And while that might be the last thing you want to hear after someone disrespects you, it's true. Because when you stay calm amid their storm, you see how far you've come. The old version of you might have reacted, argued, tried to win the room. Now, you don't play games with people who are still losing battles with themselves. Disrespect thrives in noise. It needs fuel. But when you let it die in quiet, it has nowhere to go. That's not just growth. That's control. So the next time someone tries to bait you, belittle you, or drag you into their drama, don't flinch. Don't fight. You only need one clear, calm line. "I don't lower myself to your level." Then walk away. Let them sit with the silence. Let them feel the absence of your reaction. That's the kind of power you don't need to perform, and the kind they'll never forget. There's a strange kind of silence that follows. When someone tries to provoke you, and you simply don't react, they wait for the explosion, for the raised voice, for the defensive posture. But when all they're met with is calm, presence, and clarity, something shifts. Something unsettling for them. They realize they've lost control. And that's when you've already won. Because the moment you stop giving your energy to chaos, you become something they can't touch. A still flame in a room full of wind. Most people walk through life like emotional sponges, absorbing every insult, every side comment, every glance that feels off. They personalize it, let it shape their mood, their words, their day. But there's another way, quieter, wiser way. The Stoics taught that real strength isn't found in how loud you respond, but in how little you need to. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's not just philosophy, it's strategy. When you recognize that your peace is yours to protect, you stop handing it to people who haven't earned it. When someone can no longer trigger you, they no longer control you, because the more you react, the more you reveal your fears, your insecurities, your vulnerabilities. But when you choose stillness, when you treat your peace as sacred ground, you become untouchable. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead to an understanding of ourselves." And he was right. The people who once annoyed me most weren't showing me who they were. They were revealing something unhealed in me. And when I stopped reacting, I could finally see it, not as a threat but as a lesson. Because not every comment deserves a reply. Not every insult is worth unpacking. Some things are just noise, testing your inner volume. And when your peace is loud enough, the noise fades into irrelevance. That's the real strength, not the sharpness of your tongue, but the unshakable quiet of your spirit. Let them throw shade, let them bait, let them drown in their own noise. While you walk away dry, unbothered, free. They echo not because they're true, but because they strike something unfinished inside you. You can walk away from a moment physically, but still carry it mentally, like an old, unwanted souvenir. Ever notice that? How disrespect doesn't just pass through. It lingers, follows you home, shows up at midnight, asks you to replay it one more time. What you should have said, what you could have done. But here's what no one tells you. You don't have to let their words live in your mind. You're not a storage unit for other people's projections. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And that quote hits differently when you're lying awake, replaying something that should have ended hours ago. Because most of the damage isn't in what they said, it's in what we let it become. The repetition, the interpretation, the false belief that maybe they were right. That's the trick of disrespect. It wears the mask of truth and hopes you won't look closely enough to question it. But you can. You can say, "I heard that. I see what this is." And no, you don't get to stay. That's not denial. That's self-protection. That's psychological hygiene. Because not every opinion deserves a place in you. Not every insult is a blueprint for your identity. The harshest words often come from the most unresolved pain. They lash out not because they see you clearly, but because they don't see themselves at all. They want you to hurt, because pain makes them feel powerful. But when you deny them that, when you stay calm, walk away clean, unshaken, unapologetic, that's when they realize they never had power at all. Disrespect needs your attention to survive. It grows when you replay it, nurture it, write imaginary comebacks in your head. But when you choose not to carry it, when you say, "This doesn't live here," you starve it. You take the air out of it. You protect your peace like it's sacred because it is. So the next time someone throws a low blow, a careless insult, a passive-aggressive jab, pause and ask yourself, do I want to carry this? Do I want to hear this voice every time I close my eyes? And if the answer is no, make it final. Say it out loud if you need to. I won't let your words live in my head. That's not weakness. That's freedom. And that kind of peace, it doesn't just silence your enemies. It silences your overthinking. It's wild how often people show you who they are without even realizing it. You think they're attacking you, insulting you, tearing you down. But if you listen closely, you'll hear something else. A confession, wrapped in sarcasm, drenched in bravado, but a confession nonetheless. Because most people don't speak to you. They speak from themselves, from fear, from shame, from the parts of themselves they haven't faced. And when they feel small, they try to make you feel smaller, not because you are, but because your light reminds them of their shadow. This is where Stoicism matters. Epictetus said, "What upsets people is not things themselves, but their judgments about these things." It's easy to take an insult personally, to react, to internalize, to let it echo inside your mind. But the Stoic sees deeper. They understand that an insult says very little about the target and everything about the source. Disrespect is often just pain in disguise, insecurity dressed as confidence, fear wearing a loud voice. I remember once, I was in a conversation, a debate really, and it turned sharp. The person looked at me and said, "You're way too sensitive. You'll never survive out here." Years ago, that would have stung. I would have questioned myself, maybe even apologized for who I am. But not that day, because I saw it clearly. It wasn't about me. It was a mirror, reflecting their own fear. What they were really saying was, I don't know how to feel deeply. I've numbed myself so much. That empathy looks like weakness to me. So I looked at them, calm, steady, and said, thanks for revealing more about yourself. And in that moment, I saw it. That flicker in their eyes. That pause. That knowing. That I'd seen past the mask. Because as Carl Jung once explained, projection is the unconscious transfer of one's own emotions onto another person. They call you too emotional, too ambitious, too naive, not because it's true, but because those same traits unsettle them. In themselves, they don't know how to hold depth, so they attack yours. And when you understand that, everything changes. Suddenly, their words don't cut. They clarify. You're not being attacked. You're being informed. Their insults aren't revealing the truth about you. They're exposing the truth about them. And that's freedom. Because when you respond with calm observation, instead of emotional reaction, you hold up a mirror they weren't ready to face. Think about it. When someone throws unprovoked shade, they're hoping for chaos. They want you off balance. They want the drama. But if you look them in the eye and say, you just revealed more about yourself, you shut the whole game down. You flip the script. You remind them and everyone watching that not all battles are worth entering. Some are meant to be observed, understood, and walked away from with grace. Some conversations are traps, disguised as dialogue. First, you don't see it. You step in thinking it's a discussion, maybe even a productive one. Then the tone shifts, the interruptions, the smirks, the passive-aggressive jabs wrapped in just kidding. That's when you know, this isn't about connection. This is about control. This person isn't trying to understand. They're trying to win. Or worse, trying to drag you into their storm, so they don't have to sit in it alone. That's when you realize, this isn't a conversation. It's a test. And you've outgrown the need to prove you're unbothered. By dancing in the rain, there's a quiet kind of power in knowing when to stop talking, when to step back, when to say calmly, clearly, I've outgrown this conversation. And when you do, you'll feel it. The weight lifts, the tension dissolves, the emotional tug of war you never signed up for, gone. Because what used to keep you up at night, you now walk away from, without hesitation. The Stoics had a word for this: ataraxia, a lucid state of robust equanimity, freedom from distress, clarity in the midst of chaos. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize your mind is complicit in the provocation. That hits hard, because most drama is optional. You don't have to fight every battle. You don't have to explain your silence. You don't need to convert critics into allies. Some people are committed to misunderstanding you, not because you're unclear, but because clarity would force them to confront their own noise. And that's not your job. So the next time someone twists your words, throws shade, pushes buttons you've deactivated, pause. You don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to engage. Just say it, with all the grace your growth has earned. I've outgrown this conversation. Then leave. Let them spin. Let them talk. You've got better places to be, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. It's a strange kind of power, the kind that comes from no longer reacting to the things that once broke you. You don't shout. You don't tremble. You don't even flinch. And it's not because you're numb. It's because you're whole. You looked your pain in the eye, named it, sat with it, walked through it, and came out the other side. So now, when someone tries to trigger you with a version of yourself you've already outgrown, all they find is a closed door, locked, sealed, reinforced with wisdom. And that kind of peace, it unsettles people who only understand power through control. You know what healing really looks like? It looks like hearing the same cruel words you once cried over and feeling nothing, not indifference, not denial, just stillness. Because healing isn't about pretending you were never hurt. It's about knowing exactly where the wound was and realizing it's not open anymore. It's about carrying the memory without carrying the pain. And that confuses people, especially those who used to succeed. Is shaking you. I've had people throw my past at me like a weapon, assuming it would still cut. And maybe once it would have, but not anymore. Now I hear it and think, you're late. That version of me doesn't live here anymore. And when I say that, it's not ego, it's peace, it's clarity, it's the quiet confidence of someone who's done the inner work most people avoid. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's what healing gives you, power over the space within. Because the world will keep testing you. People will keep throwing jabs. But when you've sat with your shadows and learned their names, no one can use them against you anymore. That's why I say, you can't trigger what I've healed. Not as a defense, as a declaration. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." Healing isn't about erasing the pain. It's about understanding it. It's about letting the wound shape you, not into something bitter, but into something unbreakable. And that's what they don't expect. They expect you to break. The way you used to cry, to lash out, to shrink. But what they get is calm. And that calm terrifies them. Because calm says, I'm not who I used to be. And you no longer have access to that version of me. So the next time someone tries to get under your skin, remember, your healing is not for them. It's not for their understanding. It's for your peace. You didn't go through all that pain, just to still be rattled by the same noise. You didn't break and rebuild yourself, just to crumble at the first sign of pressure. Your silence, your stillness, your lack of reaction, they're not signs of weakness. They are proof that the wound is now a scar. And scars don't scream. They don't bleed. They don't tremble. They speak quietly. They say, I made it, and you no longer matter. There comes a moment in your life when chaos no longer excites you, when drama doesn't seduce you, when being right isn't as satisfying as being at peace. You stop needing to prove anything to anyone, not because you've run out of things to say, but because you've realized the cost of every unnecessary reaction. And it's not worth it. Your energy is expensive. Your peace, priceless. And once you truly learn that, you begin treating it like the most valuable currency you have. I used to give everyone access. If you wanted an argument, I'd meet you there. If you threw shade, I'd throw it right back. If you questioned me, I'd explain myself to death, just to prove you had the wrong idea. But every time I did that, I handed over a piece of myself, a piece of my calm, my clarity, my confidence, until one day I realized I was bleeding energy for people who didn't deserve a drop of it. That's when everything shifted. I stopped engaging with anything that tried to pull me out of alignment. I stopped letting every barking dog distract me from the direction I was walking in. Seneca said it best. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And that's exactly what happens when you let the wrong people live rent-free in your head. They don't just interrupt your day. They start shaping your thoughts, stealing your focus, distorting your peace. But here's the good news. Just like you let them in, you can show them the door. Peace isn't passive. It's a choice. A firm, deliberate boundary between you and the noise. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But here's the catch. You can't become that version of yourself if you're constantly reacting to people who don't even know who they are. That's the danger in letting everyone speak into your life. Not all voices come from clarity. Some come from confusion, from projection, from a desperate need to feel powerful in a life they can't control. And if you're not careful, their chaos becomes your confusion. Now, I treat my peace like it's gold. I don't offer discounts. I don't negotiate with disrespect. I don't explain my silence to people who only listen to respond. Someone tries to bait me into conflict? I let the bait rot. Someone makes a snide comment? I smile, like I didn't even hear it. And maybe I didn't, because when you're tuned into peace, your ears stop catching static. Your spirit starts filtering what's actually worthy of your attention. This isn't arrogance. It's discipline. It's about valuing your inner world more than you value external validation. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the decision not to dance with it. Not every dog that barks deserves your attention. Some just want to hear themselves bark. Let them. You're walking towards something greater. So protect your peace like it's gold. Because it is. Every time you don't react, you're investing in yourself. Every time you let something go, you're choosing evolution over ego. Every time you stay silent instead of swinging back, you're making space for clarity, purpose, and joy to thrive. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And in a world that profits off your outrage, your calm is a rebellion. There's something deeply unsettling to others when they can't shake you, when you're calm in the face of chaos, when you don't react to provocation, when you don't need to defend your worth. That's power. Not the loud kind, not the flashy, ego-driven kind. The quiet, steady kind that comes from knowing exactly who you are. That's what the Stoics meant by strength. Not muscles, not dominance, but the control of one's inner world. You see, the real flex isn't a clever comeback. It's a centered response. It's not needing to win the argument. It's knowing you don't have to attend every fight you're invited to. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That's the cornerstone of this whole journey. The realization that control isn't found in domination. It's found in restraint. We live in a world that rewards the loudest voice, the fastest reply, the flashiest reaction. But those aren't signs of strength. They're signs of instability. True power is still. It's measured. It's deliberate. It's the ability to pause when others explode, to choose silence when others yell, to speak only when your words can't be ignored, not because they're loud, but because they're grounded in truth. Carl Jung understood this too. He once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That's the real test of calm. When you can witness someone's disrespect, and instead of reacting, ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" Not about them, but about you. Because every reaction is a reflection, and every non-reaction is a revelation. Handling disrespect isn't about being passive. It's about refusing to give someone else the remote control to your emotions. It's about anchoring so deeply in who you are that nothing shakes you unless you let it. That's not passive. That's precise. That's powerful. So the next time someone tries to rattle you, tests your boundaries, throws a careless insult, or casts shade hoping you'll dance in the dark, remember this: calm is not weakness. Calm is a weapon. It signals that your peace is non-negotiable, that your self-worth isn't built on applause or approval, that your silence is intentional, not empty. One sentence, said with calm conviction, can shake a room. "I'm not the one. You can't trigger what I've healed. I've outgrown this conversation." Say it with clarity. Let it land. Then walk away with everything they wanted to take from you still intact. Because you don't need to fight every battle, especially the ones that aren't worthy of your energy. If this resonated with you, there's another video on the screen right now that dives even deeper into mastering your emotions and protecting your peace. Give it a watch. Let it be a continuation of your growth. And thank you, truly, for being a part of Stoic Mindset Mastery. This journey we're on is not about being perfect. It's about being better, stronger, calmer, one decision at a time.